Welcome to the Epic Success Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Shannon Irvin. Now, a couple weeks ago, maybe a few, we had Michael Hyatt on the podcast talking about his new book, Win at Work and Succeed at Life. A lot of you reached out to me and said, whoa, like that is crazy good. And you're really trying to figure out that work-life balance. And I don't know if you know this, but he co-wrote that book with his daughter, Megan Hyatt Miller. Megan is she's just a fire spark, man. And she is actually the CEO of Michael Hyatt and Company. And so I wanted to bring Megan on the podcast to talk about this work-life balance and their new book, Win at Work and Succeed at Life. Megan's a CEO, crazy successful. She's also a mama. She has 5 kids. She knows what it is like to have to juggle all the time. And that's why this book was so important for her and for her father to write. And I think if you are a mom, or even if you're not, you're just thinking like, how do I juggle all this and not lose my sanity? Then today's episode is for you. So let's get on and let me introduce Megan Hyatt Miller. Let's go.
You know, tomorrow never comes. It just constantly, we stay in this perpetual state of hustle. And then we're compromising our health, our most important relationships. And sometimes it causes us to look back with regret at things we can't go fix. You know, it's too late. Yeah. Or some of us look at that, or we've done that before and we're like, ugh, I don't want that. That's not worth the trade-off. And so we tell ourselves another story, which is, okay, I'm going to have to tap the ambition brake is what we call it in the book.
Yeah.
And that basically means, okay, I guess the better trade-off is that I won't reach my professional potential. My impact in the world might not be as much as it could be, but at least I won't lose my health and my most important relationships, and I can be there for the people I love and that kind of stuff. And my dad and I are really like, hey, these 2 options stink. we don't like either of these options. What we advocate for is the double win, which is winning at work and succeeding at life. And I don't mean like, you know, you can have it all and do everything. I'm not saying that.
Right.
We really get into this in the book, but we believe it's possible to win at work and succeed at life.
Man, that is the journey I've been on. And I love your mom. I'm a mom. And it's so funny how it shifts depending on stage of life. And I remember I'm a highly ambitious recovering type A+. So like I'm down to an A, I'm an Enneagram 3. Like, so I'm just like, you know, achieve at all costs. And then, which worked fine until my health started failing and I started getting adrenal fatigue. Yep. And that crazy moment when you have a child and realize, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? Like, how do I do this? How do I not become like just a mom? And please, anybody who's just a mom, you are my superhero.
That's right. That's the hardest work there is.
It's the hardest work there is. And I never wanted to miss one of my child's soccer games. Like I wanted to pick him up from school. And I found myself doing exactly what you described at the beginning, where I'm like, well, if I just wake up earlier, if I build my business when the kids are at sleep or naps, and I never, ever left margin. I mean, to the point where there was so much cortisol going on in my body.
Right. You just burn yourself out.
I mean, things were starting to just fail. And it took that awakening for me to realize, wait a minute, I see people, they're few and far between, but I see people who actually value their family first and have an amazing business. So I'd love for you to share how that's been your journey as a mom. And I know you've kind of wrestled with some of the similar things.
Absolutely. I have. Well, I have 5 kids, ages 20 to 2. So they're 20, 17, 12, 10, and 2. My oldest 2 I married into, and my younger 3 are adopted. And it's funny, our 2-year-old daughter, we thought, why not one more? You know, let's just be parents forever. She's a blast, but she's like a little princess of the family, but we will be parents literally forever. So it was actually for me, this journey toward the double win really started in earnest when I brought my middle boys home. They're adopted from Uganda in 2011. And, you know, you probably, if you know anybody who's adopted kids, you know that any child available for adoption has special needs in many ways. You know, they're coming from a hard place. And part of that journey is, as a family, is helping them to heal and helping them to get to a place where they're thriving and all that kind of stuff. And so, we adopt these boys. I thought I would be a stay-at-home mom for like 9 months. That lasted 9 months. And I was like pulling my hair out, okay, I need something else. And so I went and started working with my dad in what was then our new business. And quickly that just escalated, right? Our business was scaling really, really fast. We were having lots of opportunities. Things were going really well. And he finally came to me a couple of years later and he said, Megan, I feel like the next step in the growth of our business is for you to become the chief operating officer, for you to really take over running the business. And that will enable me to focus on some other areas of building things for the future. I think it'll be really great, partnership or whatever. And in my mind, I'm like, ugh. Yeah, I mean, I want to. I think I can. Like you, I'm an achiever, right? So I'm like, yes, this is what I've been waiting for. But there was also this kind of sick feeling in the pit of my stomach because I thought, who's going to do the kids? My husband at that time had a corporate job, much less flexibility than I did. And I just thought, I don't know how this works. I can't delegate their healing journey to someone else. Like it has to be me. It's mom, And I thought about it. And somewhere in there, I was actually at a live event in which I heard probably somebody, Chalene Johnson speak. And Chalene, she was one of the few women CEOs I'd ever even heard from at that point of my life and career. And she said that she made a decision when her kids were still at home. Of course, they're grown and gone now, but that she was going to end work every day at 3:30 so that she could be with her kids after school. And I was like, my head exploded, like right there in the audience, like, wait, say that again, And all of a sudden for me, it was like, okay, so this is a thing that people are doing while being successful. And I've just seen a woman CEO do it. Maybe that could be possible for me. So it kind of planted a little seed. So I went back to my dad and I said, Dad, I really want to say yes, but here's what it's going to have to look like. I'm not going to look back with regret at these boys' life. I mean, I made a commitment to them when Joel and I adopted them, we're committed to them for life and they come first. And so I can work every day until 3:30. I just took a page right out of her book and I got to pick them up from school and I can't work at night and I can't work on the weekends and I think I can kill it in that, 6.5 hours a day. And he said, okay, if you think you can deliver the operating results, I'm good to try it. And we did. And we never looked back. Like it's done nothing but work, honestly. And in fact, in many ways, I think the reason it worked is because of the constraints, which is something we talk a lot about in this book, When at Work and Succeed at Life.
Yeah, I think we, on this side of things, we do the brain science of success. So you will flex or shrink to the amount of time given. That's our natural brain. I love that it was Chalene because when I said there was that one person that was doing it, it was Chalene. Yeah. And I had an opportunity early on when I was in the stress success, like literally eating chocolate covered espresso beans, trying to figure it out. It was just wrong. And I had a VIP experience with her and she mentioned, I've made the decision to never, ever, ever chase money. I'm chasing a feeling. And
yeah.
And after that, I was like, wait, yes. Because I don't know if we work in Uganda. We have a nonprofit.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
Works there. So I know what it took for you to even adopt those two boys was nothing short of a miracle.
It was a miracle.
Yeah. And, there was all those things I wanted to still do as well. So you guys in the book talk about these 5 key pillars that allow someone to succeed at both work, win at work and succeed at life.
Yeah.
And I know you and I share this love of dispelling the limiting beliefs that we mount up against that. So I want us to cover the pillars, but I'd love for you to talk for a moment about agency and how limiting beliefs don't have to be what governs your thought process.
Well, I think, I was just actually on a Facebook Live and I was talking about limiting beliefs. And I think that when we are in kind of a survival mode, limiting beliefs are, and you could explain the science of this, but it's like what our brain does to keep us safe. It's like looking for danger everywhere, overcompensating, all that kind of stuff. And so we have these limiting beliefs that are not facts. They're just the beliefs that pop into our head when we encounter certain situations, like something like work-life balance must be a myth. That's not a fact. That's a belief. belief that we have.
Yeah.
And they often come from a self-protective place. And what I found,
Absolutely.
particularly on this topic of work-life balance, is usually for one or two or maybe both reasons. One, people like us who are like high achievers often think, that's like for other people that are not that serious, like I don't need balance because I am hardcore,
Yeah.
And so that's one reason, is that we just kind of poo-poo it for that reason, which I have certainly done. I would raise my hand to that. The other reason is because I think that we have been really disappointed and sold kind of a bill of goods on this topic, that usually the advice around work-life balance feels a whole lot more like shame and one more thing you're not doing well than practical and empowering. And most of us just never can figure it out because the advice isn't really robust enough to help us do that. And so it just feels like an empty promise. And so if you're listening and you're thinking that, I mean, that's just really normal, and it's like not your fault. It's just kind of what's out there. So I hope that helps a little bit to kind of frame up the conversation that I think we're about to get into.
Yeah. I mean, it's like we were almost indoctrinated so much that our brain doesn't know anything different. So
exactly.
I would love for you to dive into the pillars, and especially the pillars that you have found as a mom really land this concept. Yeah.
Well, and it was fun to write this book with my dad because, and you and I were talking about this a little bit before we started, we're at really different seasons of life. I've got 5 kids at home. He has no kids at home, like he's an empty nester. And so what works for him now and what worked, although when he figured a lot of this out, he had kids at home, we're just at different seasons of our life. And so these can really apply regardless of your season. But basically the book, we talk about there are 5 principles and 5 practices to get the double win. And so the practices go along with the principles. The first one is that work is only one of many ways to orient your life. And I think we think work is everything. We're either getting ready to work, working, or trying to recover from work, and that's just not reality. We talk in the book that there are 10 domains of life that we need to be considering. And lest you think that what we're saying here is you're going to have to accept lesser business results so you can attend to those other areas. That's not what we're saying. This is really a performance strategy that we're talking about in the book that when you follow this should yield better business results, but also better results in the rest of your life. So what we talk about though is, I said at the beginning, it's not possible to do everything. It's not possible. We all know, because we've all tried, like you were talking about, you got to get up earlier. You keep getting earlier, staying up later. There's just, eventually there's no more hours. We can't do it all, but what we can do is the most important things. And what we talk about in the book are that there are really 3 areas where you need to establish non-negotiables, or, kind of under a big heading to define your double win. And so those are in priority order: self-care, relational priorities, and professional results. And the reason we start with self-care, as much as like you might be rolling your eyes right now, like hearing me say that, is because it's a performance strategy, because you can't focus on the most important priorities in your relationships or your business if you're too tired. You won't make good decisions. You won't be creative. You won't be innovative. You won't see through obstacles to solutions. Sleep is like literally everything. That's the first thing we talk about when we talk about self-care. Obviously, nutrition, movement, all that kind of stuff is great. But what for you is non-negotiable there? And it can't be everything, but it needs to be what's most important. And the same thing with relationships and professional results. So that's really the first principle of the double win, is that work is only one of the areas that we focus on in our life, or one way to orient our life. And the practice is to define your double win, because if we're going to make this happen for you, we have to know what we need to make happen, right?
Yeah.
Is the vision part. So that's the first part.
Okay. So when I was reading this is the part that made me come back with the highlighter, because personal story, I remember hearing things like this and even following people that were into self-care. And I was like, and I know my audience, I know them well enough to know there's probably a good chunk of you that are sitting here going, when I hit X number in my business, then I will go to the spa. Then I will blah, 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 blah. Right. And I lived that life. Chasing after the next goal, that then would afford me the time to take care of relationships and self. Ended up burned out in the hospital for tachycardia and was forced to look at it.
Yeah.
And in the being forced to look at it, which I don't recommend for anybody, I'd rather you actually read this book
very
and get it. But I had to actually pay attention to myself, my signs, reconnect with my intuition, know when I needed to stop and slow down, not feel shame over that. And the irony, which is why I want to bring up the story, is in the season that in the last 2 years, when I really downshifted and put the priority order was self-care, relationships, then business, my business has at least 10x'd. We
Absolutely.
were, under $1 million business, and now we're close to a $10 million business.
That is so awesome. I love that.
So how do I would,
you're a living example.
Yeah. And so if you were sitting over here and I would have just looked at you and said, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Because we're taught that the harder you work, the more you deserve the break. But that is backwards to the way our brains are wired.
Okay, so that is because of really the next principle, which is constraints foster productivity, creativity, and freedom. And that if you're going to ultimately leverage the power of constraints, you have to constrain your workday. You have to decide, I'm going to start working here and I'm going to stop working here. And what we would recommend is that you would also decide that you're not working at night, early morning, weekend, or vacation. Now, you may be thinking, Megan, there's no way. I hear you out there. I hear you. But let me tell you something. This is a performance strategy. So if you want to perform better than you ever have, if you want to do what Shannon has done and 10x your business or better, this is the strategy to get you there. Because what happens is the level of creativity and innovation and productivity that you can discover within constraints is exponentially greater than when you have no boundaries and you work all the time. When you're taking care of yourself, when you're focused on the professional results that matter most, then what happens is you get into, like right now, I work a 6-hour workday. We've actually moved our entire company to a 6-hour workday as kind of a response to COVID. And what has happened to that is, or what has happened as a result of that, is that I, as the CEO of our company, I make way better decisions with my time in 6 hours than I would with 8. I am very focused on what are the results that I'm trying to produce today. What are the outcomes I'm focused on? I'm not just checking tasks off my list and everything's kind of equal. I know exactly what has to happen today and I can't mess around. It's like the Friday before you go on vacation on a Saturday, right? When you get like 10 projects you've been putting off for 3 months, you get them all done at the same time. And let me just, one more kind of like proof on this. So company-wide, we moved to the 6-hour workday. We're still working on kind of the full implementation of that, but we made substantial progress last year. We started this in April. We had an aggressive profit goal for the year. We're very focused on profit. And we beat that goal in a COVID year by 50%, working 25% less time. I mean, head explode, right? Like it's such a big deal. And that is the power of constraints. They are our friend and not the enemy.
And then how have those constraints at work created just beautiful outcomes in the other domains of your life?
Well, like yesterday, for example, I got done with work and went home, and because this is now a practice, this idea of constraints, I'm done with work at 3:00. Then I was able to go home, see my kids, and then take our 2-year-old daughter to the park with my husband together, and we were like on the swing with her and chasing her around. She was obsessed with this soccer ball that a dad and a son had. We were like trying to redirect her the whole time, but it was so fun. And I just thought, here we are, it's 4:30 in the afternoon. We're at the park with our daughter and I'm the CEO of a rapidly growing company. That, like, how many moms can say that? And that's the choice. Not everybody gets to make that choice, but we get to make that choice, And I mean, I'm going to look back and say, I didn't have to choose between what Naomi, my 2-year-old daughter, what her needs were and what the needs of our business were, because I got everything I needed to get done yesterday, but I was able to do that and then come home and have dinner and sit around the table. One of my relational non-negotiable priorities is that I sit down and have dinner with my family 5 nights a week. Now, I don't really care so much what we eat. That's not like the mission critical. That's not the non-negotiable part of it, but the sitting down and looking in each other's eyes, that is non-negotiable for me. And I'm going to look back, I know someday when I have grandkids and all my kids are finally out of the house, which will be a long time, I'm going to look back, I know, with gratitude that we had all those moments together and I won't have regrets.
Yeah. It's the thing that you wish was taught in school and that became more the norm. So that's why this book is so, so important. And do you find teaching people constraints that people don't like that? It's like, oh, I want to make my own, I want freedom.
Yeah.
So I'd love for you to talk about, you talked about the business results on a constrained day, but even the constraints of what you're doing within the day and planning that out. I mean, I'm a full focus planner junkie. I've got it sitting right in front of me because that's where my notes are, so
I love that.
And of course we'll link that up in the show notes as well. But talk a little bit about how constraining or really planning the things ahead of time really does create that freedom.
Well, part of what constraints allow me to do is that I don't start work till 9:00. And what that means is that I get up at 5 a.m, go to bed at 9. I am like all about some sleep. I'm tired at the end of the day with 5 kids and a business. I'm tired. I could honestly go to bed at 8:30. My compromise with my husband is 9. So I get up at 5, and the first thing I do is make coffee. Then I have a devotional time. My husband and I are Christians, and so that's important to us. Then I get out my full focus planner and I look at the weekly 3 objectives that I set on Sunday night. So what 3 outcomes do I need to accomplish in the coming week? That's really important for keeping me focused. Those are related back to the quarterly goals I'm focused on. So all this stuff kind of links together. We've got the most important things identified for the quarter, and then I've got these outcomes for the week. So then when I sit down, like I did this morning, I'm saying, okay, so in light of those outcomes, what do I need to accomplish today to make sure that I'm moving toward those? And these are discrete tasks. So individual discrete tasks. So, I'm looking over at my planner now. So I had a coaching call with my coach. I need to complete the podcast interviews that I have in a Facebook Live. So I'm doing that right now with you. And then I have 2 emails to respond to for some consultants that I'm hiring for a project. And those are my big 3 because those are related to my weekly big 3, which relate back to my quarterly goals. And that's how I know when I look over at that planner, I'm looking over it now if you're listening and you can't see me, that, when I get a little off track, like I come back from lunch, like I did half an hour ago, I'm like, okay, wait, I got to reorient. What am I doing? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and answer those couple of emails right now while I have time, because I want to make sure I, at least if I get nothing else done today, get my big 3 done. And that's one of the things we talk about in the book is scheduling what matters. And this is a big part of it, that you have to be clear on your priorities, what really moves the needle in your life, both at home and at work, so that you can schedule what matters and they don't get crowded out by other less important things.
Yeah, one of the things I hear so many struggling business owners and entrepreneurs deal with is they get home, and because this is not part of their daily practice, then the brain, because there's space, starts just, running. They can't even sleep because now all the priorities.
Right.
And that comes from the lack of constraint.
That's right. And a lack of time in a ritual kind of format where you have time to think through that in the morning before your kids get up or before your house gets crazy or, you start working or whatever. When we try to do everything at once, it's just like a big plate of spaghetti and way less like a bento box, And so having these kind of constraints allows you to say, okay, now I'm going to focus on this. And then like at 7:00 at my house, my daughter wakes up, then I'm focused on her for a while. Yeah. So I think that helps me not try to do 2 things at the same time.
Yeah, love it. So once they get some constraint and really plan those things out, where's the next place they can start to dial in?
So the next place would be this idea that work-life balance is really possible. And like I was saying a second ago, scheduling what matters. And we talk about this idea of the ideal week where you're really time blocking based on your non-negotiable priorities in those 3 areas, the self-care, relational priorities, and professional results. We want to make a template for your week where you've identified, hey, these are the things that have to happen every week. They're not negotiable. I'm not taking meetings in the morning when I'm supposed to be working out because my body is working out is one of my non-negotiable priorities. So like in my case, except in very rare instances when I have some kind of doctor's appointment that we just can't schedule or the kids have something going on at school, which happens just a few times a year. Like I don't never have meetings before 9:00 because before that I'm working out and doing my morning ritual and that sets me up for a productive day. And the reason that like my executive assistant is able to help protect that is because we've created together this ideal week that takes into account all of my most important priorities, both at home and in our business. And then she knows, okay, that's out of bounds. We're not going to do that. That would compromise this other priority, or at least if we're going to consider a compromise, it has to be considered, and we have to know that it's more high leverage than the thing that we ordinarily would plan during that time. So we talk a lot about that schedule what matters. I think, the important thing to say is like, none of this is magical. This is all very methodically taking you through a process that gets very, very tactical and practical, so that this ultimately ends up on your calendar.
And that's what I love about this book is it's so this delusion that it's a myth.
Right.
It gets broken down step by step by step. And I'm a step-by-step girl. That's what got me into the neuroscience of success. I found out that the brain actually has a pattern. And if you connect with the pattern, you can actually build a network for your brain that's successful or remove the ones that aren't. So step-by-step, anything is like my love language. And so seeing that like, oh my gosh, you're just literally step-by-step giving the practical, implementable tools to complete wins at work and succeeding at life. And it's a you cannot miss this book if you're going to get one book this year. I know there's more that I want you to share though, because I don't want to leave out the last two key components of this system. Yeah.
Well, so it's funny. The number 4 kind of principle of the double win is there's incredible power in non-achievement. And for all of you guys like me who are the high achievers, you're like, wait, what? Again, I want you to think about what I'm about to say through the lens of this is a performance strategy. Think about yourself like a top performing professional athlete and what you would need to do to set yourself up for a lifetime of top performance. And so the practice that we recommend to you is that you keep a hobby that delights you. Now, here's what I want you to think about before you kind of maybe are inclined to dismiss that as like, I don't have enough time, or I'll do that when I retire or whatever. Think about this. Where do you get the best ideas for your business? Maybe it's a book idea, right? Book idea or new product idea or some new talk you're going to give or some other kind of product, right? They always happen when you're not working. Always. Like the shower, number 1, for me, running is another place.
Yes.
When I'm out at the lake, my family has a lake house. And when the weather's warm, we're out there. If I'm fishing or, like watching the kids play and reading a book or whatever, that's where those ideas come from. Yeah. So think about it this way. If you're serious about continuing to innovate, which, if you're maybe earlier in your business, this becomes harder as time goes on because you don't do some of the things that you used to do, when you had less pressure and you start kind of crowding out this time. But if you're serious about innovating at the level that's going to keep you competitive and keep you growing and scaling as time goes on in an aggressive way, then non-achievement is your best friend. I mean, walking on the beach, you live somewhere you can walk on the beach, which I'm so jealous of. That's like my favorite thing. That's my favorite thing on the planet is walking on the beach. I just love that. Right. But like whatever that is for you, for me, that looks like running. It looks like fishing. I love to fly fish, though I don't get to do that quite as often as I get to just like fish off the dock, at our lake. Yeah. But I'm also taking up piano, which I haven't done since I was 10 years old. So this weekend I'm going to buy my little weighted keyboard. I'm starting my lessons. I'm going to be a beginner again. But because I know how valuable this is. So that's the 4th one. And then the final principle of the double win is that rest is the foundation of meaningful, productive work. Yeah. And the practice of that is that you start the day with a good night's sleep. And here's the thing. We're talking about not just success this year. We're not talking about just blowing your numbers out of the water for this year or next year. We're talking about what's it going to take for 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now to not only still be in business, but to achieve the vision that you have today for your business out in that kind of time frame. You're going to have to think about this like the long game, because if you want to win the long game and not just the 3-month game or the 6-month or the 1-year game, then sleep is the absolute best thing you can do, because that's the foundation of good decision making, clarity, mental health, all kinds of things. And so again, if you come out of 2020 like, oh my gosh, I am running on fumes, I got nothing left, my self-care is in the toilet, I'm overworking, I know it, I don't even know where to start with sleep. Start with sleep. It is the foundation.
Yeah. And and I'm not going to take a left turn here, but we know when we scan brains that are fatigued over fatigued, like we can see where decision making is coming from, and it is not coming from your thinking brain that you think it's
it's kind of scary.
It's scary, and it's going based on only old programming, and you're actually working from the place of being no different than having at least 2 to 3 alcoholic beverages.
I mean, just
imagine running your business that way.
That's a terrifying thought. We wouldn't want to run our car like that, much less our business, right?
Yeah.
You probably have people who are depending on you. Maybe you have employees, or you for sure have customers and clients. These are people who are depending on you. There's a lot at stake with your future to make these things a priority. And I think it's kind of easy to forget that sometimes, but you're not just taking care of yourself. You're taking care of yourself so that you can take care and serve others.
Yeah, 100%. I'd love for us to wrap this up, because here with me in Megan is arguably one of the top CEOs in the industry and a mom. So I'd love for you to speak to the mamas out there that are having this conversation around, it's not possible for me. And just as we wrap up with talking about this book, just really speak to her and what is possible if she connects with these principles. Yeah.
Well, I love talking to women entrepreneurs and women leaders. I mean, you guys are my heartbeat. You know, we're the same people. I've had all the same challenges you do. Last night I had a really tough day with one of my kids, and I laid in bed and I cried about it with my husband for a while. And, then I got up and came to work and started running the business again like I do every day. And so I know what that's like. I know what it's like to juggle all those needs. And I just want to tell you that, first of all, you have the freedom to define success on your own terms. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to look like it looks like for, the male CEO that you know. There's nothing wrong with that, but we get to do it our own way. And that is so amazing. I think when I look back, if I could go back and tell myself something at the beginning of this journey in this particular business, I would say, trust your intuition, trust yourself. You can do this, and you can do it on your own terms, and you can do it in a way that people will respect you for, where you can have a major impact and where you can drive incredible results. And you don't have to compromise anything. You can't do it all, but you can do what matters most. And, I think for me, I know what it meant when I saw another woman CEO doing what I thought was impossible. All of a sudden it became possible for me. And I hope that I get to kind of pay that forward, and that I can be that person for somebody else, that they can hear my story and go, gosh, she can do it. Her life sounds crazy. She can do it. Then I can do it, and I mean, it's absolutely true. You can do it.
Yeah. I just got goosies, and I'm thinking, I always say that I have 2 kids. So anybody who has 3 or more, there's crowns in heaven that are just reserved for you. So we're doing something really cool. If you don't mind me talking about it real quick, down in the show notes, there's a link, When It Works, Succeed at Like book.com/epic. And we're running a cool contest. So when you're hearing this interview, the book has been released. I think today our podcast is going live on opening day, when you can actually get the book. A lot of people have pre-ordered because they heard our interview with Michael, her father. So everybody who has bought and entered in at that URL is going to be eligible to win really cool prizes, as well as being a special guest for free at our live event. So we've got some amazing speakers set up. I mean, if you're thinking about getting started in business or growing, this is a live event that you're going to want to be at, and you're going to be our guest as a VIP, front row, all the bougie kind of arrangements and all of that kind of stuff, because we don't usually do that for ourselves, right? So go get the book. It's going to be the best decision you've made. And if you're the person sitting here saying, I haven't even started yet, then here, I want to say to you this: you could save a good 5 years of your life by just doing it right the first time out. Yeah.
So true.
Megan, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you for who you are. And I'm looking forward to seeing this book get in every hands of all of my listeners. So thank you for your genius out there.
Thank you, Shannon, for having me, and for your generosity and for your support and enthusiasm. I love your community, and it's been so fun to be with you today.
All right, that's it for this week's podcast. And we will check out the show notes. Make sure you grab the book, and we'll see you on next week's podcast. Bye for now.